Welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem, your host. We want to thank you, the listeners, joining each and every week here as Business Influencers continues to grow in size. And we can't thank you enough for sharing the show and spreading the message and how your level of influence can take your brand and business to the next level. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types, an opportunity to rekindle old relationships, and perhaps meet new people for the first time. This is a membership program, meaning that it takes all the noise out of social media. So no more of those notifications that you get each and every day. You get to come in on your time to generate genuine and authentic relationships with those you choose to talk with and share content of an interest as you build a community, not only amongst your school, but perhaps others as well. Feel free to check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about the power of simple communication. We are with our subject matter expert today. His name is Ben Guttmann. And Ben is a marketing entrepreneur and educator and is the author of Simply Few, Why Clear Messages Win and How to Design Them. So he's going to be sharing a lot of insight from this new book that's coming out here on this show. And you're going to have an opportunity also to get your hands on that book as well. And we'll have all that information here in the show notes. And without further ado, we welcome Ben Guttmann to the show. Ben, how are you doing today?
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. Great
to have you here. We're such a pleasure. You know, Ben, communication is so important. It is just, I consider it to be the everything that drives anything in any type of relationship, whether if it's peer-to-peer, if it's, you talking to your boss, anything in an organization, or even to the customers and the audiences you serve. Can we talk a little bit about the power of, in this case, of simple communication and what that means and what people could really generate from what you're going to share today?
I'm so glad you introduced it in the way that you just did, because that's how I introduced the book, which is, my background's in marketing. I ran a marketing agency for 10 years. I teach marketing at Baruch College in New York City. And I, have had years now of experience of working with different clients, helping them get their messaging out and seeing my students try to do the same thing in their careers. But what the truth is that we all are marketers in some way, shape, or form in our lives, right? Like, we're all communicating internally to our boss, to our people, to our direct reports. We're communicating in our communities, to our families. And of course, if you are a marketer, if you are a politician, if you are an advocate, if you're a fundraiser, if your job is communicating, you're doing it every day, right? It's a professional imperative. But what I've seen in all these different walks of life, and all these different parts of my professional or personal lives, is so many people and organizations have such a hard time communicating clearly. And so I was always curious, and people would hire us to solve this problem, right? So I was asking, why is that? Why do we have such a hard time communicating in a way that actually connects with other people? And it turns out when you start to investigate this stuff, that we have this bias, this natural bias towards complication, that we always want to add more. We always want to, kind of hide behind the layers of complexity that we add in our work and our websites, on our presentations and our talks. And that is comfortable. That's kind of the path of least resistance, but it also ends up being some of the least effective ways which we can connect with each other.
Yeah, that's so true. And what would you share? I mean, Ben, from your experience, running a marketing agency, because, you were sure working with brands that was looking to simplify their communication, they make a better connection, a deeper connection with their audience. What would be some of the things that you would suggest about, like, if somebody's hearing right now, whether if they're in marketing or PR or just a business owner or a company that's looking to simplify their process here, what would be the first thing that you would suggest that they look at?
Well, there's when we look at how to communicate simply, the truth is there's kind of 5 principles that you want to act upon to
Yeah.
get there. And it's funny, the book is, this is the book, it's 208 pages. You could just read the first page and say, hey, you know what, the messages that work, the things that connect with other people are the simple ones, right? That's great. But how do you do that? And when you look at the research, and I spent a lot of time combing through academic databases and looking at different case studies and statistics. When you look at the research, basically there's 5 attributes that an effective, simple message shares. So it's beneficial. What does it mean? What does it matter to the receiver? What's in it to them? It's focused. Are you trying to say one thing? You're trying to say multiple things at once. It's salient. Simple message is salient. It stands out from the noise, stands out from the crowd. It's empathetic. Are you speaking in the same language that the audience understands? And then it's minimal. And have you cut out, and that's at the end, it's on purpose at the end. Have you cut out everything that isn't important? You have everything that's in there that you need, but only what you need. And so you want to look to each one of these different principles as a guide in terms of how you actually kind of crack that nut.
Wow, that's great. Great. Thanks for sharing with that. And what would be some of the things, like I know you provided some input. What would be some of the key points in the book, that you put out that would, provide a process to simplify communication, whether, again, if it's one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, and I, as a professional speaker, I know how important it is to communicate, and it's not one size fits all to, every person you're talking to.
So it's funny, you mentioned one-to-many. I actually make an argument in the book that the one-to-many doesn't really exist because the groups don't really exist. When we speak to anybody, when we speak to a crowd, and I'm sure you, in your experience as a speaker and being on the radio, you got to speak to one person. Every time that we're communicating, we're really communicating one-to-one, and we might do that at scale, and we do that on the stage, and we do that on a show. But if I'm doing a sales pitch and I'm saying, hey, I want you to go buy my product, my miracle mop or whatever for my infomercial, or I want you to go vote for my candidate or vote for me for office, you're making that decision in your own head, right? And so I have to convince you individually. So the best way to frame group conversations, these kind of group messaging, is often in that one-to-one piece. And
I like that point. That's an interesting. I find that that. Because a lot of people might just automatically perceive or assume, like, well, if you're speaking to multiple people, then you might have to vary it, somewhere, along. But when you think about it, how can you speak to like 100 people individually? It'd be impossible.
Well, yeah, the best thing you can do, if you're up there giving a speech, if you're up there giving a stump for something, the best thing you can do is look at this, is have an individual in mind that you're speaking to, and go make eye contact one by one. This is beyond some of the area we talk about in the book about the presentation skills, but experience pitching a million different projects as an agency owner or teaching thousands of students. The best connection I can do is when I go one by one and have that conversation. So if I just kind of stand up there and speak to the back of the room, that doesn't really actually connect with anybody, right? Because nobody thinks that I'm talking to them. But if I speak to somebody one-on-one, even if I'm not the person that I'm not the person that you're making eye contact with, I still feel that connection. I still feel like this person's authentic, and it does make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now that you shared that, it definitely, I actually learned something from that, which I think was quite informative. What would be some other things that you would like to share about simplifying communication? You talked about, we have those natural biases. And I always find that a lot of times, if we're not aware, if we're not using self-awareness, we don't realize that those natural biases can get in the way. And effective communicators do understand that they have to be mindful of that.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the pitfalls that I see a lot with my students, and I see it with professionals, is what I call the Frankenstein idea. And if you read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you go to the section there where she describes what the monster is. And it has beautiful black hair, and it's got pearly white eyes, and it's got this and that. And every individual component of the monster is beautiful, is strong, majestic, whatever the other adjectives you want to throw at it. But together, it's a gruesome composite. It's all these different things together that actually makes it worse than the sum of its parts. And a lot of times when you're communicating ideas, especially creative ideas, it's worse for you to have a bunch of things kind of taped together and held into this kind of mishmash instead of focusing and committing to one different thing. And so that's a big, so I call that the Frankenstein idea, right? That is all these different things put together into one, which ends up being worse than kind of communicating one thing at a time. The word priority is, if you go back to the roots of that English word, it goes back to, it's one. It's a singular word. You can only have one thing that you're going to communicate first. It's better for you to kind of lead with one thing, go sequentially into stuff, instead of saying this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And that ends up being a lot weaker.
So I like what you just said. It's almost like if you equate that to multitasking. If you're doing 3 things at once, and let's just say mathematically, to make it easy, each of those 3 get 33% of your energy. It would be the same. Hey, if I'm really focusing, I'm focusing on one point. And then after I focus on that one point, okay, now I can go to the second. It's not like where it just kind of just random goes, one to the other without any kind of transition or pause. Yeah, it makes sense.
So that's exactly it. I mean, the challenge for a lot of folks is that each individual thing can be good, but you have to do this kind of active creative editing and creative leadership for stuff. I use the analogy in the book of actually my favorite artist, who I just saw in concert like 2 nights ago, Bruce Springsteen. And I don't know if you read his memoir, but he tells a great story about how he got the nickname of the Boss, right? So his name, so for those who don't know, Bruce Springsteen, rock and roll Hall of Famer, every accolade in the world, his nickname is the Boss. Well, why is that? It's because it's Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. It's not just Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. That's not what it is. It's his band. It's his name and lights. It's his decision to who plays what, who's on the tour, who's where, who's on this album, who's on that album. And he has a quote there, which is, democracy doesn't work in rock bands. And democracy is great by all means, but you have to have a bit of creative leadership if you actually want to get these big ideas across.
Wow, I love that. It's so ironic you bring up Bruce Springsteen. I was born in the same hospital as Bruce in New Jersey, Jersey Shore Medical. And actually, when I was in college in 1985, I'm dating myself, I'm 56. I worked security for the West Coast leg of his Born on the USA tour.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. He still got it, by the way. I mean, we saw him.
Yeah.
We saw him on Wednesday at MetLife, which is his natural habitat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
And the guy played for 3 hours and change. It was crazy.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. Talk about communication at its finest there, right?
Right. And actually, so there's another reference to him. So I forget what song it is, but at the beginning of some of his live recordings, he goes, "Nobody wins unless everybody wins." And it's a great little kind of rallying call. It itself is probably a good, simple message, but also it's a good lesson in terms of how do you achieve that focus? Well, you have to kind of play the politics a little bit. You have to figure out a way to get everybody to win. And when you look at like surveys, most people say they don't like to play office politics. But the thing is, they happen whether you participate them or not. And it's important to realize this truth, which a lot of good marketers, because if you're working in an agency, client services, you're kind of at the whim of the beast a lot of times, is you realize most people actually don't always care about the result or the facts. They care about how they can justify their decisions. And so if you can find a way to get people to justify their decisions in terms of being able to simplify and focus and get to that kind of braver state of less, then you're going to end up being a lot more successful in that quest.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And about Bruce, that's so ironic. I've brought back memories there with that. No, in terms of the, with your book coming out, what's out now. And with that being said, what are some of the things that you're looking to make an impact in, really to really help people and businesses across several industries really understand how simple communication can really change, everything they're doing from the inside out.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I wrote this book now is that we're in an age where things just get louder and louder and busier. And I will be in my class and I will ask my students, how many hours a day do you use your phone? And they'll say, oh, it's, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. I'm like, okay, this is great. Now actually prove it. Go pull out your phone, pull up the usage statistics there and shout out how many hours it's been. And I get people that are saying 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10, and then I ask them, how do they feel about that? I said, well, I don't feel that good. That doesn't make me very happy. And that's all of us, right? Like, I'm not immune to it. I think last week I used my phone like 4 hours and 36 minutes. You get the notification every Friday, right?
Yeah. You can see that. Sometimes it'll come up without you even prompting it. Yeah.
And so there's like, that's just the kind of, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like we've seen the use of ad blockers kind of skyrocket over the past few years. The download statistics of meditation apps have skyrocketed. Where even the platforms themselves that enable the onslaught of noise, Apple and Google, they've gone out of their way to say, hey, we see this is becoming a problem. We have to kind of take a step back to it. But this is just to paint a picture of what the background is, that it's so loud and noisy. And in that world, in that noisy world, the only things that really work are when we can really focus and sharpen our message and get through. And I would see so many people who they were advocates of great causes. They work on amazing things and they couldn't get themselves hurt. People with great products and businesses that they've poured all their life work into them, they can get hurt. And there's something kind of magical when you do get to that state of simplicity where like the message is crisp and it kind of sparkles a little bit. And I want more people to be able to get to that. And that's what I'm excited to share.
Wow, that's fabulous. Fabulous. And what are some of the things that you're, that you feel resonate? I know you teach this, at the, college level. And what are some other things that you're looking to get get this message out there, other than through your academics, also through your influence, platforms, like that could be through, your old connections through your marketing agency and so on. And
yeah, I've been really, so I sold my business about a year and a half ago, which was a really fun ride. And that kind of put me in the position to begin to think about this a little bit more, because when you're in the thick of it, when you are sitting there and you are doing the marketing and you are working with clients and you are having to make that payroll every week, it's hard to kind of ruminate on like what really works and why does it work? And I learned so much from different books and research over the years that putting something together that would help other people was also really important. Now I do a number of consulting projects since I sold my business, and I teach, and I have a few other things I'm kind of working on, which are exciting. But it's really been a joy to kind of to share, to look into, to learn more about this, and to share this over the course of the last year. Because writing a book takes a long time, right? It's this journey, the book proposal for this goes back to the first half of 2022. And so it's about a year and a half from when you first conceive of this idea to when people finally get it in their hands. So you have to kind of like the concept, you have to like doing it, and you have to be, it has to be something you can live with for a long time. And this was a topic that was really, that really hit those marks.
That's great. That's great. Well, as I mentioned, we stressed the importance of, me personally being a professional speaker, I do adjunct work at Westchester Community College, and I coach and train a lot of organizations, and communication is the lifeblood of just about anything in any situation where you have people. And we just always assume, a lot of times people just assume and speculate what people mean and what they're looking for, what's important to them. We're not specific, clear, and concise like we think we are. But I love the things that you shared here about simplifying it, because the more, I guess, when you simplify things, it just makes it easier to articulate what somebody's trying to get across. and you know, and I can understand where they're coming from and so on. So yeah, that's great.
You know, there's a quote I love, which has made its a version of it's made its way in here, which is, I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write you a short one. And it's attributed to Mark Twain a lot, but it's not, like everything that's attributed to Mark Twain is not really his. And yeah, it just shows the whole idea is that there's the research question behind this book is, why do some messages work when others don't? And then the answer is simple. The messages that work are simple. If you stop the reading after that, you got it. But the idea is, okay, well, this is a design book. That's my functional background. I've been a designer for years. And so we look and we say, what are the kind of rules of design for getting to a message that actually achieves all those goals? And so that's how that's how I organize the elements in here.
Got it. Love it. Love it. Well, you've got great stuff here. Anything else that, you would like to share from, that's in the book that you feel could really resonate with the listeners right now, listening now, and those that will be listening later, that perhaps maybe that we tend to take for granted, but something that you share in here that could really elevate, somebody's message and how they communicate to another level?
I'll give you two things. So number one is, this is a very tactical one that a lot of people really resonate with, which is remove the word and, or interrogate your ands, put it that way. Sometimes ands make sense. And if you can, replace them with the word so, or however, or despite, or because, or something else that ties the two ideas together in more of a kind of causal link. The word and has this sneaky business where it can connect two things that don't really make sense. And I just said,
there you go. We say it out of default. I do that all the time.
It can connect two things that don't really make sense. So your brain just hears it and says, this is great. Okay, moving on to the next thing. But if you try to put some other word to connect those things, it doesn't have to be in your message, in terms of the full output, but in terms of your development of the message, a lot of times, if you interrogate that and say, okay, well, so this, well, then there has to be this connection between the two of them. You start to think about the actual meaning behind the words instead of just them kind of floating by.
Yeah.
So that's one tactical thing that I think a lot of people could really do, could really make use of. And then the second one is a little bit of a mindset shift, is the difference. So what I say, one of the reasons why simplicity works is that simple is kind. And there's a difference between kindness and niceness. And nice is caring about the simple, about the surface level, right? It's caring about kind of the decorum and making sure everybody's smiling and they move on with their day. Kindness is caring about the actual outcomes, caring about the person behind it, is caring about their motivations. And the example I love of this is, have you ever gotten a parking ticket?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Not recent, but a long time ago.
So if you get a park, you remember the signs that are all kind of this Byzantine, no parking this day for this day and this day for that day, and then on alternating Sundays and whatever it's going to be.
Yes.
And then that's a nice sign, but it's not necessarily a kind sign. It's giving you a lot of the details. The kind sign is the version that Ed Koch put up in New York in the 80s, which is, don't even think about parking here. don't even think about parking.
That sounds like a typical New York message, right?
Yeah. So that's not very nice, but it's very kind because it gives you a very clear understanding of what the actual point is to get across in there. Don't even think about parking here. That sign became so popular. They still sell souvenirs of that sign, actually. So not many road signs have kind of merch, but that one does.
Yeah,
so
that's classic. No, it's straight to the point. It's better to be straightforward than beat around the bush, so as they say. So that's it. I forgot about that. I remember that now. You brought back some memories with that, which is great. Well, anything else that we're getting close to the end of the show. I want to make sure, that, people get to, reach out to you and get to know you and so on. But before we do that, anything about the book that you can let people know how to get their hands on the book? Is it Amazon, Barnes & Noble, combination, you name it?
Yeah, so this is the book. It's beautiful. It is available wherever books are sold. It's from Barry Kohler Publishers. It's released on October 10th. So if you're hearing this after October 10th, 2023, go to your store and get it. The information about how to buy it and links and more information about me can be found at benguttmann.com, BENGUTTMANN. I recognize that my name is not minimal because I have the extra N at the end there, but
we talked about before the show, right?
But go to benguttmann.com, or if that doesn't work, simply put book. .com will redirect you there also. And check out the book. I'd be honored if you read it, and then shoot me an email. I'd love to hear about how it resonated with you. And then as well, I send out a weekly email every Tuesday called 3 Simple Things, which you can check out on my website as well.
Wow, that's fabulous. Great information that you shared here. We highly encourage all of you listeners and those that will be listening later, share this show. This is a great topic, something that is so important. Everything we do, we highly encourage you to reach out to Ben, get to know him, and definitely get your hands on this book. And if you read it, share it. Share it with somebody else. You can never go wrong with communication. If we can simplify our communication, the better off we could be. Ben, before we close, I would like to, if there's take a minute and a half, if you like, any closing comments that you would like to make to the audience and those listening later to kind of sum everything up when it comes to the power of simple communication.
I'll leave you just with this, which is that simple doesn't mean easy. It can be a lot of work to get to simplicity. It also doesn't mean always the shortest thing too. And so that ends up being a distraction for a lot of people. It's not about removing every single word. And it's not about just, that doesn't mean that it becomes, just because it's shorter, it is easier. And so I encourage you to kind of put the hard work in as a sender. That's one of these distinctions I break out in the book, is there are senders and there are receivers. Just like when you're sending postage, the sender, which is all of us when we're talking, when we're presenting, when we're selling, was just like when we're sending mail. The sender's in charge of the postage, in charge of paying the weight of the transmission, and that's our job too as communicators.
Wow, great way to kind of sum everything up. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time today to be here and share your wisdom. We wish you so much success with the book, and we'll do everything here to make sure we get that out. Again, the link to the book will be, here on the show notes. Again, share this with your peers and get your hands on it. Or if you'd like, for any reason, you're trying to reach out to Ben and you're having reach out to us. We'll make sure we connect you with Ben and vice versa. So Ben, thank you so much again for being here.
Thanks so much, Chris. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Ben in to talk about different topics and ideas to help raise your level of influence and taking your business and personal success to the next level. If you have any questions that you would like to share with us in terms of any insights that you would like to hear on the show, feel free to reach out to us at chris@christophersalem.com. That's chris@christophersalem.com. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your day and week, and we'll see you next week.